All right. I want to call the meeting of the Board of Public Works to order at 6 o'clock on August 24th, 2017. Could we please call the roll?
Yes.
Here?
Commissioner Bergeron?
Here.
Commissioner Pappas?
Here.
Commissioner Moriarty?
Here.
Commissioner Ackerman?
Here. We also have Alderman Siegel, who's our liaison, Alderman Dean, and Alderman Dowd present for the meeting. Before we go to the agenda, I've received feedback from the commissioners directly and indirectly that we should do a presentation to the board regarding the Burke Street project. We did do a presentation before a group of people, and the reason, in other words, the Board of Aldermen, the Board of Public Works, and the school board. And the reason we did the joint presentation is that everybody wanted to be first. You know, the school board was complaining that they hadn't heard anything, and the Board of Aldermen are the ones who vote the money, and the Board of Public Works have authority over obviously the Public Works Department. So we thought the best thing to do would just be to bring everyone in at the same time. But we have gotten feedback that one or more members of the board would like a presentation at which more detailed questions regarding the Burke Street project could be asked by members of the board. Director Photo and I have spoken about this, and we would be glad to hold a meeting, and we're looking at the schedule, September 5th, 6th, or 7th. Because of Lisa's going to be at a Public Works conference for a period of time there. And if we can arrive at a time or on a date, we would schedule a special meeting just to discuss the Burke Street presentation. Commissioner Pappas.
I think I think we've already had the presentation. And I mean, rather than having it a second time, I'm ready to vote today. And as such, rather than have a special meeting right after, I was able to watch it on TV, and I'm ready to vote today. And I don't think that it's necessary to put off having our vote and having this presentation. Thank you.
So is there a motion? I mean, does anybody?
I would move to not do that presentation. We have everything all set to vote on the bond today. So as such, I don't see the reason for the meeting. But so I move not to have that meeting the 4th or the 5th once everything gets going, and that's my opinion. Thank you. So I'll make the motion, and I guess I'm looking for a second.
And the meeting would be the 5th, 6th, or 7th, just to be clear. The 4th, I think, is Labor Day. But is there a second to that motion?
I'll second the motion for discussion purposes.
Motion is seconded. Commissioner Bergeron?
I would just say, I guess we're confused as the process of what we're trying to do. So tonight, we were just agreeing. I don't believe the Board of Public Works has actually ever voted to go forward with the Burke Street project.
Well,
No, we haven't.
It was implied that we were, have we actually ever voted that we were going forward with the project?
Not to my knowledge.
Or is tonight's?
well, we were asking tonight, the referral from the Board of Aldermen would ask for your recommendation. Now, I think there's been votes on this in the past, but putting that aside, tonight would be a vote on the referral. If you wish to vote tonight, if you wish to get a further presentation, then we can do that on the 5th, 6th, or 7th.
I hope we're ready to vote tonight, but that's my view.
Mr. Mayor?
Commissioner Ackerman.
One of the things that was presented on July 17th was an overview, if you will. One of the things that I did not see there is anything relative to a cost-benefit analysis or a return on investment over the next 10, 20, 30 years. And if we do go forward with a meeting in early September, I was hoping that maybe we would have that, so we get a little bit more educated versus cost benefit and return on investment to the taxpayers of Nashua.
Commissioner Bergeron.
So if we decided to not, if we had just voted on this and the motion had failed, it would still have gone on to the public hearing on Monday night?
Correct.
And the Board of Aldermen, if they so choose, when they got to that point, would be able to override the board and go forward if they felt it was in the best interest of the city? And I'm asking, I'm not, I don't.
Well, the hearing on Monday is a public hearing before the Budget Committee. So the way that it would work is the Budget Committee, following the public hearing, will, if they wish, make a recommendation
To the full board.
to the full board, and then, or they could hold it. I mean, that's their pleasure. But assuming they made a recommendation to the full board, then that would result probably in a vote of the Board of Aldermen at their next meeting, which I believe is September 12th, second Tuesday in September. Commissioner Moriarty.
Mayor, thank you for your comments and your recommendation. Actually, I am in favor of having a meeting just with the Board of Public Works to discuss this matter, because that has not been done. And to be in compliant with the city charter, that should be done. As I read the city charter, no building shall be erected, altered, remodeled, or changed unless the plans thereof have previously been submitted to the Board of Public Works and approved by it. We have not done that, and I think we need this meeting to do that.
Commissioner Pappas.
We had plenty of time to do that. I actually sent an email to the mayor trying to look for information beforehand. And since we weren't getting the information in advance, I asked for meeting minutes for that Burke Street committee, and I got, well, it's not public information. And I think this board, if people still want to go to that special meeting, they can go to it. But there is a public hearing coming up on Monday, and this board needs to vote before then. And if we didn't have the proper information, we can vote on the information we got. Otherwise, we're doing it backwards. Thank you.
Well, just to be clear, the group of people, it's not really a committee, who helped define what the project is, included one member of this board, a member of the Board of Aldermen, and some staff people. There are no minutes. These weren't official meetings. These are like there's internal meetings in City Hall all the time. So the answer was not that it's not public. The answer is this was not a committee, an official committee. It was simply a group of people who were helping to define the project. It's not a meeting of the Board of Aldermen or a Board of Public Works or anything like that. But I thought, Commissioner Pappas, you were one of the ones who had asked that you get a presentation, and that's at least one of the reasons that seemed like a good idea.
Can I respond? So we did, and I think that Commissioner Bergeron had asked before we had the big meeting to do that. The meeting was in July. I had something going on that evening. I don't know if Commissioner Moriarty was going on, but we have a public hearing set for the public. And since whoever chose not to give us the proper information, and I chose to watch the presentation on TV, and I think that it's not fair to the public for us not to vote on this tonight. And if people still want to go ahead, and I think it should get an up or down vote tonight. And on Monday, when the public comes to that meeting, they should know what the Board of Public Works recommendation was.
All right, the motion has been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
I would just say,
Commissioner Bergeron?
I would just say we're kind of getting into, if by us was the motion, original motion to table or to just take it off the agenda? By us taking it off of the agenda or basically not discussing it tonight, not agreeing to go forward, I think that's basically one and the same as us if we voted no on this. I think if we vote either way, we're still gonna need a presentation at some point, because at some point, we're gonna have to find out, and I think that's where and I was on the committee, so I'll take some responsibility that where we failed by failing to provide the numbers, because we do have the breakdown of the numbers of the office building and the costs, and the warehouse building and the cost to, demolish that and rebuild and what it is. And we do have those numbers. It's not like we don't have those numbers of where that number of the 48 million or 49 million came up. We do have those numbers. And so at some point, we're gonna need the presentation as a board just to decide what we wanna do with the building, even if we decided not to go forward. We'd have to say, okay, well, this is what we got, this is how we arrived at this, whether it was to keep the warehouse up or to take it down. So I'm just trying to, I don't know, by us not voting on it tonight or taking it off our agenda, if that's what we agree, I think it's the same message. I don't think that by us voting tonight, and I'm asking because I'm not sure what we're trying to accomplish. I guess we're all in agreement that we're not, and I could be wrong, so certainly, that we're not willing to vote yes on this tonight.
I think, well, I'm sorry, that, Mr. Mayor, I'm ready, I think we should vote tonight, and then we can still go ahead and get the presentation. I think it's only fair to the public who are going to show up on Monday to the hearing that this commission gives some kind of a recommendation. There's been plenty of time, and the lack of information has been deafening, and I don't mind getting the information, but I'm ready to give an up or down vote tonight, and I still, I have no problem with any presentation afterwards, but the time for the presentation was before tonight, and I'm ready to vote today. And I didn't make a recommendation I didn't make a recommendation to table.
Well, Commissioner Pappas, I don't understand your reasoning. We gave, when you say the lack of information, we gave a full presentation in front of everyone, the Board of Aldermen, the Board of Public Works, and the school board, all at the same time. You argued that you wanted to have a more private presentation before that. And you thought it was a lack of transparency that we weren't doing it just to the Board of Public Works. I took the opposite view. To me, it is more transparent to bring everyone in, everyone that's involved, and give them all the information, the numbers that apparently you didn't get because you didn't go to the meeting, all the background that you apparently didn't get because you didn't go to the meeting. If you had come to the public meeting that everyone else came to, you would have all of the information that you, I think, are seeking. But having not done that, and me having received the input that you would like a presentation, even though we went forward in front of a larger group, you want a smaller presentation, we'll do that. So I'm willing to do that. Lisa is willing to do that. But I just disagree with the idea that there's a lack of information, because you're only arguing that it should have been done before a smaller group rather than a large group all at the same time. And I'm just sorry, I don't agree with the idea that presenting to everyone is not transparent. I just can't buy that. Commissioner Pappas.
Okay, so we didn't get a whole lot of notice, and I'll be very blunt. I had a colonoscopy scheduled for the next day, and I didn't want to reschedule that. And I did what
Fine,
I
but
did.
that doesn't-
I have the floor. It's too little, too late. You had the opportunity. I sent an email asking for information, and I'm ready to give an up or down vote. I got a backbone, and let's see if other people do. Thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner Moriarty.
Just a point of order, Mayor. According to Robert's rules, the presiding officer sets the agenda. You don't need a motion to change the agenda. the agenda has not even been approved for tonight yet. We just took a roll call. It's nice to have a motion if you want a motion, but according to Robert Rules, you are the presiding officer, you set the agenda. Thank you.
Well, what I proposed was that we schedule this public hearing that I thought, or public meeting, another presentation. We would pretty much repeat what we gave to the larger group, but no problem there. I'm glad to do that. I'd received input that you wanted that, so I'm willing to do it. The motion now is not to proceed in that fashion, so I'll rule that motion in order, and the board will decide by a majority vote whether to receive the presentation that we have proposed. Schedule and receive the presentation that we've proposed. Is there any other discussion? Commissioner Bergeron.
So we wouldn't be voting on whether we're authorizing the recommendation, we're just voting on whether we want to have the presentation?
Correct, and the import being that we would not make a recommendation tonight because I think at least some of you told me that you wanted to get more chance to ask questions and the like before you decide whether you wish to recommend. Commissioner Pappas.
We've done roll call, we haven't approved, well, the agenda. I didn't hear a motion to amend the agenda.
Well, the motion that's before us is your motion, so if you want to withdraw it, that's fine, but what's before us is your motion.
Well, I guess I'm a little confused because we should have, before we discussed this, we should have gone to the aldermanic referral and voted on it.
Well, that's not the way it happened, so, do you
Well,
want your...
you spoke, so,
Do you want your motion, or do you not? Do you want it, do you want to vote on it, or do you want to withdraw?
you know what, you were the one that said something about a meeting before we, did you ask to amend the agenda?
I propose doing that, yes. And then you moved not to do that, and that's
Okay,
what
all
we-
right, so, no, I vote not to amend the agenda. We can do that at the end of the meeting after we voted.
There's a motion on the floor.
The motion on the floor is, I propose that we that you, based on your requests, I suggested, which I think are reasonable, that you guys want more information, you want to ask more questions, fine. We'll do another presentation, and that was my proposal, and that we do that when we can schedule it on the 5th, 6th, or 7th of September. Then Commissioner Pappas said she didn't want to do that and moved that we not proceed in that fashion. That's the motion that's before us. That motion has been made and seconded.
Okay, and just for further discussion, I begged for the information before we had the other meeting. So I wish to go ahead and with the motion.
Commissioner Bergeron.
I don't know if this helps the other commissioners. There is more information, there's more detailed information on the costs and where the numbers were arrived at, what would cost to renovate the office building, what it would cost to do the warehouse, demolish the warehouse. And so I think there's more information to be had. So however way we want to do it, I think we're doing the same thing. By us not voting and taking it off, that's basically saying that we're not willing to go forward at this point. Or we certainly, I don't know how that affects any recommendation to the Board of Aldermen, whether we vote no tonight on the recommendation and we still schedule, I mean, it's not like, I mean, the liaison is here, it's not going to change anything when Alderman Siegel goes back to the committee saying basically they've agreed not, they voted not to go forward and they want another public hearing, so certainly.
Just so that it's clear, all of the cost information that Commissioner Bergeron is referring to was presented to a public meeting of 3 boards all at the same time.
Yes, I saw that.
Anyone who wanted that could have come or watched it on TV or asked as a follow-up for copies of anything that's available.
I saw, as such, I think we should move forward with an up or down vote on the aldermanic referral tonight. Thank you.
All right, so we have this motion before us. I think we should just decide how to proceed as quickly as possible so we can get to the business one way or the other. Alderman Siegel.
Just a piece of information, and I actually understand Commissioner Pappas's concerns. The recommendation of the Board of Public Works generally comes up at the full board meeting. It doesn't have much effect in committee, and we don't generally say, okay, this was referred that way in committee. Just, you know, but I understand.
If we've had the information, I watched this, I was unable to go because I had a colonoscopy the next day. Other people went, they watched it, and I think we should, I think that the public deserves an up or down vote on this aldermanic referral from this board tonight. Thank you.
All right, so the motion before you is to not proceed as proposed, not receive the presentation, but instead to go directly to the vote tonight. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
I honestly didn't know what we were voting on, so we're.
So what we're trying to,
Did we make this motion? Are we voting on this motion, or just we're voting not to
The
go forward
question-
with the meeting?
the mayor put something
let's-
forward.
let's-
We're
let-
trying
let
to.
me- let me repeat
before we
again.
did the
Commissioner
aldermanic
Pappas, you're out
referral.
of order, all right? Let me repeat again. I proposed, based upon a request that I got from commissioners, that we delay the vote and we present more information and give the opportunity for more questions. That was it. I thought it was a simple proposal that I thought most of the board was seeking. However, then, and had there been no objection, we would have proceeded in that manner. Then, Commissioner Pappas moved that we not have a presentation, that we not wait, that we not ask additional questions, and that we proceed to the vote tonight. That is the motion that is before us. Voting yes means we just proceed as the agenda is presented. Voting no means we instead defer the issue of the aldermanic referral. We do a presentation on the 5th, 6th, or 7th of September. You get any questions answered, you get additional information or whatever it is you're seeking, and you have a vote on your recommendation at that time, and that vote go to the full, that recommendation go to the full Board of Aldermen. So again, a yes vote means we go ahead now, no presentation, etc. A no vote means we hold a presentation, we ask more questions, and we make a recommendation in early September.
So we would still make a recommendation at that point.
Correct.
But a yes vote would mean we would make it tonight, since we've already had the presentation that everyone else saw.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. Does everybody understand the vote? Commissioner Moriarty?
Just so I'm clear, Commissioner Pappas' motion was withdrawn. The motion on the floor is your motion, Mayor. If that is so, we need a second on your motion, Mayor.
Commissioner Pappas's motion was not withdrawn. A motion on the floor in a Roberts situation can only be withdrawn if the motion and the second are withdrawn. That has not happened. So what's pending is Commissioner Pappas's motion to proceed tonight to vote without a presentation, as I suggested.
Receive a second.
All right?
Second.
All right. Now, you're either gonna, maybe we should we do,
This is ridiculous.
a lot of people didn't vote last time. We really need a vote here. So please articulate your vote so we can
I
understand.
think we should have a presentation, though.
Well, we can have one, but we can still vote tonight. This is total malarkey.
Wait, no, wait,
to try to
please
switch
wait, I
things
mean, you're,
around.
okay, so is there further discussion or questions? Further debates? Commissioner Ackerman?
So, based on what I'm hearing, perhaps the current motion in front of the board might want to be amended so that, yes, we have that the opportunity to have that additional presentation that the board has not received up until now. And if it might be a win-win for everybody. But I can't make that, you have to amend your own motion.
Any other discussion?
So I would amend that we vote on this tonight, and should anyone want to attend an additional presentation to the Burke Street sometime in early September, they can go ahead and attend that. But we should, but that being said, this needs to be voted on tonight.
And what's pending before us is the proposal that we go ahead tonight and vote on this, and that's the motion that's before us. Any other discussion? All right. Voting yes, again, means we proceed tonight to a vote and make a recommendation now. Voting no means the recommendation is deferred pending a presentation in September. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed?
Opposed.
All right, so we proceed tonight. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion passes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of July 27th?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the Board of Public Works meeting of July 27, 2017.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Public comment.
Jim Cutter, 86 Pond Street, here in the city. I have a letter for Mayor Donchus. It says this: Dear Mayor Donchus, last evening I attended the Infrastructure Committee meeting where I was told we would have to wait for you if anything could be done. You should have my letter to infrastructure soon, if not already. My last paragraph of it pertains to the Gilbertsons selling their home that has a strip of our driveway. We would like your help, since it may take longer to sell their home due to its condition, so they should have as much time as possible in which to sell their property. Time can be gained by someone from the City Hall notifying them they are trespassing on our driveway. Sincerely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cutter.
Yeah, thanks. Oops. Tough here. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Carter.
Further public comment?
Sorry, Fred.
Okay, my name is Fred T-Boom, 24 Cheyenne Drive, Nassau. Is it the button? Oh, green.
Sensitive.
Progress. It's been a while since I've been before the public works board. And I'm here to talk about R-17-116, the bond resolution. I have a question before I get into it, if you ask a question. Is the Public Works Board vote an advisory or is it a binding vote? I thought I heard it's a binding vote.
I think it's advisory.
It's advisory, not binding? I see a face shake hands, like, nice to know.
Can I?
Commissioner Pappas.
I know when the Board of Public Works voted against the Broad Street Parkway, the Board of Aldermen had to go around us and do a second vote.
Well, that's not my question. My question is, I don't care about second vote, third vote, 10th vote.
It's advisory.
Is it advisory, is this board an advisory vote that the Board of Aldermen can ignore, or is it a binding vote that cannot be ignored? In other words, if you vote no, it's the end of it.
It is a advisory
All right.
vote, just as it was with the Broad Street Parkway.
Thank you. All right, I needed to know that. 'cause
I would,
got a little
I
confused.
would disagree with that, Mayor, I'm sorry, according to the city charter, but that's just my opinion.
Well, it's a serious question.
I think it is a serious
If that's
question.
the case, maybe you should get some legal opinion on it.
Well, any commissioner can request the legal opinion of the legal department,
I
and
think
I'm sure
Moriarty?
they'll be glad to answer the question.
I suggest you, Mr. Moriarty, address the question.
We'll make sure that if any commissioner has a question regarding that, I'll make sure they get an answer to you.
It would surprise me because there's a public hearing scheduled independent of the vote here, so I would presume that this is advisory only. Although it seems to me backward, this board should vote after the public hearing was held. In the public hearing, there's going to be a presentation, I understand.
Correct.
Okay, that gets me to the bond resolution. You have all received, and I've copied, have you all received my message that I sent out
Yes.
yesterday? I'll have a copy? I have extra copies here.
Yes. Thank you.
Well, you probably get the opinion, my opinion, that this is a colossal waste of money. Let's go one step at a time. First of all, in the bond itself, in the fiscal note, this is not so much to this board as to the Board of Aldermen, there's an error. There's a $6 million error in the fiscal note. It says the cost of this bond is $33.5 million, the fact is $39.5 million.
And would you allow me to read what David Fredette wanted me to read on that subject? if you-
Sure.
Because you had raised that, David Fredette, the city treasurer, asked that I have a statement, or his little explanation, which is, and this is from the treasurer Fredette, there was an inadvertent typographical error on page 3, which is for informational purposes only, and is not part of the formal bond resolution. It is only an estimate, and if the interest rate is higher or lower, then the total amount would be higher or lower. The resolution is prepared by the finance department originating with the treasurer. So he's basically saying it was a typographical error, which, thank you, you caught it, which is good, but
The
that's.
important thing is not that I caught it. The important thing to note is a $28.5 million bond resolution cost the taxpayer $39.5 million.
Correct.
That's the important point. Doesn't matter what I found. These things are very expensive. Bond resolutions are a way to defer paying for things on things you want now. So if you want them now, let the future people pay, in this case, 22 years of payments, because there's 3-year staggered bonds proposed. 22 years of payments for this resolution. And the reason it's done, so you don't have to pay for it now. It's almost painless now. And for 22 years, you got to pay for that. It's the reason Detroit went bankrupt. It's the reason Venezuela is in very serious trouble. It affects countries, states, municipalities. Bonding is a serious thing that you have to be very careful about. The first question to ask is, why are the two bonds, one for a Performing Arts Center and the other one for Burke Street, and I'll get to each one of them separately, why are they commingled into a single bond issue? So you have one vote. If you don't like the Performing Arts, or you like the Burke Street, what do you do? So the question is, why
And this is public comments, you don't have to answer anything, Mr. Mayor, but these questions will all be raised next Monday, when I hope to be there. You can ask them now. People might like
All
what they hear.
May I respond on that?
Yes.
Well, first, this isn't really for questions, so
Understand?
we have a lengthy agenda. It would be nice if, in general, you just made comments and leave the questions for the public hearing. The Board of Aldermen is really but the answer to that question is that came forward as a matter of convenience. I think there will be a vote on the Board of Aldermen to separate the questions, and I expect that will pass. And I personally don't have a problem with separating them either. So I think in the end, you'll see a separate vote. They both projects were coming, this one from Public Works and the other from elsewhere, were coming together at the same time, so you've got, but having been raised as an issue, I'm sure it's gonna get separated.
All right, I'll write that down as 2 attaboys.
What?
2 attaboys so far. 2 attaboys.
Oh, okay, thank you. But, again, we have an agenda, now we're gonna be voting on the recommendation. If you would mind, let's not have a whole lot of questions and answers, we could be here all night. Would you mind, which we wanna hear your comments, often they're very apt, sometimes
Understand,
not.
I'm not gonna answer.
But-
I asked about 20 questions, I think. I'm not
I
gonna
know.
ask all 20.
Oh, good, okay,
But the ones that I am asking are on the top questions.
all right.
Then affect this board. $36,000, according to the newspaper, were committed as a reserve, to reserve the Performing Arts Building, Alex Shoe Store. Apparently that $36,000 was reserved and allocated, as I understand it, maybe it's paid for, before you had a bond approved, before the project has gotten a go-ahead. Question is, and maybe you don't want to answer that, if this bond for the Performing Arts Center does not get adopted, it's dead, you get the $36,000 back.
Well, first, there is no option agreement yet. I mean, there's funds reserved, but no option agreement. That was to pay for an option agreement with Mr. Koutsos. There's no option agreement yet. It hasn't even been proposed to the Board of Aldermen. So were there an option agreement proposed and passed by the Board of Aldermen, then those funds would provide the compensation. So that's not a settled matter. But the
36
board could decide to not bond this right away, but to enter the option agreement, or the board could decide to bond it and not enter the option agreement. I mean, they could decide a lot of different ways.
Mayor Dodge, you're making it very complicated. Question was simple. Did you pay $36,000 or did
No.
you not pay? Good,
No,
thank you.
Not yet. Not until the Board of Aldermen approves it.
That's my
and
question.
There's
That's
an
all.
actual agreement,
That's all I'm asking about.
so.
Now, the next question is not for this board, but I went through the effort of going through the budget.
Can I ask
Put
you a
together.
question? Are you going to ask these same questions at the public hearing?
Absolutely, and I'm not gonna go into detail.
Even though you got the answers now?
No.
All right,
Well,
go
no.
ahead.
Can I go ahead?
Isn't this public
Yeah, a
comment?
couple more, I don't know. Let's see what the next one is.
Laying out the entire bonding situation in this city, and I summarize it in a table. I'm not gonna go over this table. I'm not gonna go over the details. But in the last 2 years, there's been an enormous amount of bonding. Just the last 2 years, the new bond resolutions, fiscal 17 of $12.3 million. There's a street repair bond approved for $37.5 million, and now we're facing $28.8 million, which, if you put together, is about, what is it? It's 6 years, $70 million of additional bonding in 2 years. Mayor Donches, in your administration, bonding is going out of control.
Well, I'm going to respond to that. First of all, you're factually incorrect. If you look at the city budgets and the bonding schedule that is included in the fiscal 17 in the fiscal 18 budget,
Right.
you will see that we owe less money now than when I came into office. And by the end of this fiscal year, we will owe, what, 12 million less than when I came into office. Now, that does not include the pavement bond, which you mentioned, which no money has even been borrowed on that yet, but it was authorized. Now, the reason that's not in the bonding schedule is that paving was taken out of the city budget. You spoke in favor of that measure when it was passed under Mayor Lozo. You favored that, and we adopted your recommendation, and the city went ahead and took paving out of the budget, because no tax money pays for that. It is the funds we received, the funds that are directed in the paving, the separate paving account, which you supported. The funds that pay for that, as you will recall, I'm sure, are the state aid we receive from the state of New Hampshire for paving and for road work, and motor vehicle funds. And you did oppose the paving, you did oppose paving the streets, you did, but I think there was broad public support for that measure. But putting that aside, which is not in the budget, not in the schedule, based upon what was proposed by Mayor Lozo, based upon what you supported, and based upon what the Board of Aldermen voted in 2014, that was taken out of the budget. But as far as the bonded indebtedness that is supported by taxes, it is lower now than when I came into office.
Let me go on.
Now, can you,
Mr.
so I'm
Pep-
not, I just can't listen to that without correcting.
First of all, what's in the budget, off the budget, is not my discussion here. That's being taken care of in a court case. What is an issue, and I've documented the details, and I hope during the public hearing you will address that in detail. I showed the new bonding issue in fiscal 17, 12.5 million, 37.5 million street bond, and now 28.5. That
This
is
is-
a lot of bonding.
This has not been authorized. And it
If
may-
this gets authorized, that's my whole point.
May or may not.
28.5 if this gets authorized, 37.5 million that was authorized, and $12.3 million that's new bonding fiscal 7. That's a lot of bond. I hope you address it. I hope you address the entire.
Well, while you're here, Mr. T, but, you know, I
bond.
was looking, when you raised that, I looked at the schedule, and you know what? The city bond, there's the school side and there's the city side. On the city side, we owe about $52 million. And you know, the Broad Street Parkway, that you cast the deciding vote, that's almost 50% of our city debt. That, you cast the deciding vote on that. You voted in favor of that debt, and that's 50% of what's pending on the city side right now. 46%. 28.7 million out of 52 point some million. So, you know, it's interesting that you know, it just, I think people should know that, you know, it just depends what project we're talking about. You've supported huge borrowing in the past. The biggest city project, the biggest city debt that has ever been incurred but for the high schools. And now you're against this, which I appreciate. And maybe you've got good reasons for opposing this. But the factual statements that we're going wild and that you would never have borrowed this kind of money, well, you've approved more debt than this in the past. And I just want people to remind you of that fact.
You got the facts here, Mayor.
That's correct. We have the
180
facts and they're in the budget.
$189.5 million is our total bonded debt. It is $189.5 million. It's our debt today. 189.5, not counting the 28.5 million we're talking about.
All I can say is, you know, we have a AAA bond rating. We just got the second. This idea that we're like Venezuela and
Well,
whatever.
let me go on, Mayor.
What else you cited, that we're about to go bankrupt? I mean, you're just raising fears in people's minds that are totally unjustified. We just went up on the bond rating. We just got a AAA, that we're not about to go bankrupt. Like, we were so far below the debt limit, the legal debt limit. The city is in strong financial condition. That's what Moody's said, that's what Fitch says, and even the third bond rating is only one rank below AAA. So our bond rating, our financial position is stronger than the state of New Hampshire. So for you to say we're like Venezuela and about to go bankrupt, it's just a complete fantasy.
I didn't say
And I,
bankrupt,
that might
Mayor.
impress some people, but it is just not accurate.
Could I
I didn't say bankrupt.
Yes,
just-
Commissioner
Mayor,
Bergeron.
I think we're, and plus for the public that's watching this, out of the 28.5 bond, and I agree with Commissioner Moriarty, we do have authority over that building. We do not have authority over bonding. That would go to the Board of Aldermen. So the bottom line is, out of the 28.5 bond that's being proposed, 13 million of it is Public Works related. That's all really where, even though we're making a recommendation, we only have the 13 million. So, I mean, from the spirit of hopefully moving the meeting along, if you have, I would say, comments on Burke Street, that can we stick
That's a great opening,
to Burke
Commissioner
Street?
Bergeron, because I was going to get to Burke Street.
Because we have 13 million, and basically Public Works wants to renovate that building and tear down the warehouse. Our portion would be 13 million.
I'm glad you brought that opening, because, by the way, the reason we have a good bond rating is a spending cap.
That is not accurate.
Let me go to Burke Street.
No, I'm happy to, I want to hear,
Go to
honestly,
Burke
I
Street.
want to hear your comments.
I
so-
think,
Go to the
I
second
actually think the
page.
commission and the public is more interested in your public comments than our debate, so
Go to the second
Let's-
page of Burke Street. If you approve, and that's the whole problem with these kind of bond resolutions, we have a partial bond resolution. You have a partial bond resolution, Burke Street, said in phases. You know, it's one of these things, you take a step, it's like going to Afghanistan. You go to Afghanistan, you're stuck. You're stuck for 16 years, and you're gonna be stuck for another 100 years. That's the problem with phasing. You approve this, what is it, 13 million? 13 million, I forgot the number. Now you're facing the next step. The Burke Street property, we're told, is gonna cost $49 million. So if you take this step, you're absolutely marching into the next bond resolution, and now you're going to the next version till you reach 49 million. And that is a very serious problem. I took the tour. Public Works Director Loza was there. You were there. Olma were there. They showed us around the building. They took us around the garage. They said, this wonderful garage is going to be the Public Works garage. This building is fantastic. We paid $4 million, and we're going to spend $10 million, no more than $50 million to modify it. And everybody's happy. And now I see, and this is a disgrace, Mayor, $49 million. What in the hell happened here?
let me answer that question as well. So as you recall, and I thought you supported this purchase, I don't remember though.
The what?
What happened is that under Mayor Lozo came forward with a proposal that we buy the Burke Street building for $4.2 million.
Right.
And Mayor Lozo represented to the Board of Aldermen that the renovation of the office and the garage would be, produce a whole new public works facility, and the representation was between $10 and $15 million would be the cost.
Right.
And I think the Board of Aldermen accepted that, and based upon that representation, moved forward. Now, I don't like being in this position any more than you. You've pointed out an obvious problem. We bought a building thinking that, that it was going to cost $10 or $15 million for a totally new public works facility, which we probably all would agree would be a pretty good deal. And then, as we look into the thing, we figure out that actually look into it in detail now in the last year or two. We look at the big barn and we figure out it can't actually be saved, it can't really be used, and it is it's more cost-effective to just tear it down and build a new one. So this project is kind of in the works, and so now it comes forward, and we're seeking your input as to whether it's worth proceeding as well. But in the end, the Board of Aldermen decides that matter. And you've pointed out an obvious problem. Yeah, it is. I mean, David Fredette, the city treasurer, has proposed a bonding schedule, which shows you that he's proposed, this bonding schedule would phase it. and has suggested that, you know, in order to keep the bond and indebtedness budget flat, we need to pay off some more debt before we can undertake anything close to that size. And so we do part of it now and build the biggest part of it later. But, you know, it is a big commitment. I don't like being in this position, having voted for this before, thinking this is gonna cost 10 or $15 million, and then have it be 40 or 49. It's a hard decision for the city, and so I just want people to understand how this happened.
It's not a hard decision at all.
Well, I mean, having made this.
Not a hard
Point of
decision.
order, Mayor, during public comment, I'm going to have a lot of the same comments, but I think that Mr. Tebow ought to be able to present his presentation and then hear the board debate it.
That's fine, but he keeps asking me questions, and so I answer them.
Well, but I
If
think
you don't want
that
me to
he-
answer, don't ask
But
questions.
I think he can do rhetorical questions, which is fine. But
If something starts off 10 to 15 million,
I don't
and blows to
disagree.
50 million, then you have to ask yourself, what is the pressing need? Is the public works sitting in a parking lot? Is Ms. Photo operating out of a tent? Are the trucks being rained on? What's the pressing need? Now, we thought it was an opportunity for maybe when we needed some land in case we need to expand wastewater. That was a real reason given, as I understood it. But for 50 million, sayonara. Demolish the building, keep the land, or sell the building and sell the land. But how in the hell do you cost justify 50 million for building you really don't need? Really don't need. Not only that, it's pointed out that putting all these trucks off down Old Street is a lousy place to have all kinds of trucks, because you're gonna put all the trucks in that location. I mean, the whole thing it sounded bad to start with. It sounded impossible today. I have recommended here that I demolish it, keep the land, sell the whole thing. Let me go on to the other one, the Performing Arts Center.
We don't have that, we're not making a recommendation on that, so I
15
don't want public comment on that now. We've got enough to deal with,
Wait a
Fred.
minute, that's part of the,
But
part of
we're
the
only
bond
being asked
resolution.
here about Public Works. There's a public hearing on this, you can ask all this Monday.
They're voting,
We're
Mayor,
not.
this board is voting on this resolution.
Well, on the Public Works part of it, and we've already
They
agreed
are?
it's gonna get separated. They're not being asked for a recommendation
Didn't
on
know
the
that.
Performing
This
Arts.
doesn't show
on the
separated
agenda.
budget, a resolution. It shows a
Fred,
combined
come on.
resolution.
I think
We've got, this is the Board of Public Works, they're not making a recommendation on the Performing Arts Center. That's not within this purview whatsoever. There's already a public hearing scheduled on this. You can ask all these questions. We've got an agenda of Public Works items. I ask you to keep your remarks just to the,
That the board can take a vote on this tonight, as I understand it, then the first order of business ought to be separate this, but, so the first motion is separate the issues into separate resolution. I don't know if you can even do that. I don't even know if you can this board can
They
separate the
could,
resolution.
I think the board could simply say, we recommend yes or no on the Public Works portion of the bond issue.
But that means, I do think that Mr.
I
Commissioner
guess they could
Pappas, you do not
say-
have the floor.
I suppose the board could say, we approve the Burke Street, crazy enough, but we don't approve the performing arts. Or they could say, oh, you can't vote in the performing arts, I understand. So you need to bifurcate this thing.
Point of order, but
The whole, you know, it should never have been brought this way.
It's gonna get
Why it brought this-
bifurcated.
I don't
It's
know
gonna
why it
get
brought this like this
bifurcated.
in the first place.
What?
I don't know why you put this bond resolution together in the first place if you knew that this board was not going to vote on the Performing Arts Center. Why even put it in the same resolution?
I don't know, I can't understand why you think the Board of Public Works would be voting on the
Well, 'cause-
Performing Arts Center,
They
but
put it in the resolution, that's why. Why did you put it in the same resolution?
I told you.
What?
I told you already. I answered that question. That they came forward at the same time, so they went into one resolution. People want to divide them, fine, no problem.
Mayor, can I? Mayor?
We're in public comment right now. Does anybody else have public comment?
Good evening, Robert Sullivan, 12 Stony Brook Road. May I just have one quick question for you for question time? You mentioned that the cost information was projected when 3 boards met. Can you tell me the date and what meeting that was so I can look at it?
I don't remember the exact date, but there was a joint meeting of the
July 17th.
July 17th.
July 17th. Okay.
So there was a joint meeting, publicly posted, of the Board of Aldermen, the Board of Public Works, and the school board. Because we were, at the time, we get Commissioner Pappas saying, no, the presentation should be only to the Board of Public Works, not to the school board and not to the Board of Aldermen. We've got the school board saying, we're being kept out of the situation. We don't know what's going on. And the Board of Aldermen are the ones who actually make the decision. So based upon Commissioner Pappas saying she wanted more of a private presentation, the school board saying they weren't being kept informed, and the Board of Aldermen being the ones who actually decide this, couldn't please everyone. So we decided, let's go ahead and give the presentation to the public, to all the boards, everyone at the same time, so no one can complain that they were kept out.
Okay, man, I don't mean,
Out of
I
the
just
process.
want to know when it is. Is it on the
It was
website?
July 17th.
Is it on the website?
I assume so, yes.
And that was a Board of Aldermen's meeting?
It was
or
a posted meeting of all 3 boards.
Okay, July 17th, okay. Because I'd like to review it because I asked questions pertaining to costing, and I think it's very important that the public understands this. I believe we should cut our losses. I don't believe spending 13 million or 49 million is as important as maybe using some of those monies to put in the police and school department. It's called opportunity cost. What could you do with your money if you could spend it in a different way? And I will have you know, people here, not you, Mayor, I'm not directing this at you, that 2 years ago, I attempted at a public meeting with the Budget Committee to ask specific and detailed questions around the $10 to $15 million piece of legislation that Mayor Lozo was presenting, and I was not allowed to ask specific questions that are very similar to the questions that I have sent to all of you people here. That was a sham. It was shameful. And maybe if someone had drilled into this, we might have found out that maybe $10 or $15 million wasn't enough. But no, Mayor Lozo didn't want it. And we had an alderman at large that went along and did not allow me or the public to ask specific, detailed questions. I'm sure that's not going to happen again. Having said that, I urge you to vote no tonight, whatever that means. I'm a little confused on that. We do bond a lot. We bond quite a bit. The paving, $37.5 million, and then I just found out today that we have maybe another $37.5 million in the future. I don't want to go into the details of what I feel are going on now about the spending cap. I'm just very disappointed in what's going on here today. Not this specific thing. I believe we should cut our losses if we should. I expect detailed investment performance metrics that delineate and describe why this project is so important. Everything on the table. Maybe it isn't as important as we thought it was. It's better to say, okay, let's cut this back, maybe a more reasonable type project, rather than spend the whatever amount, $13.5 million, whatever it costs at the end, and then have more components that are added in the future, which we have little knowledge of today. This is not the way we should do business. Not the way at all. I expect return on investment, payback, information. If it isn't, just tell us what investment performance metrics that this city used to evaluate this project, that this project is one of the more important ones, and that it saves the taxpayers money. The taxpayers will receive a return on investment and payback on the dollars they're spending. We demand that. Believe me, people are talking about this bonding, what's going on with the spending cap. I just think if you can cut your losses and scale down this project, because perhaps there have been some investments made. It's like the Broad Street Parkway. We don't need another pork barrel project in this city to get implemented because our publicly elected officials didn't do their due diligence. We can't allow that to happen again. And I'll have you know, Mayor, that I walked up the 3 flights of stairs myself without taking the elevator this evening. Thank you very much.
So did I.
Good evening. Mike Broderick, 8 Boxwood Court. I'll try to make my comments brief because I don't want to be redundant, but a lot of what I'm going to say has already been spoken. But just so you know where I stand on this, we all know that this was purchased to expand the wastewater treatment facility. That's what was presented. I just see that there's been poor planning in this whole project. I question whether, you're going to have the solid waste department go report to Brook Street, then go get their vehicles, then go back to do their job, drop off their vehicles, and go back to report. Perhaps same with parking and recreations. To me, that does not make sense. I'm against bonding. I think it just raises our tax level for the citizens of this of Nashua. I think we have enough taxes already. I don't know about the bidding process, but I would think in business, you hope you get three quotes on anything, because I do in my business. And we need to see the plans. I know on Burke Street, I was at the presentation where the director said, well, the traffic's going to be different times. There are a lot of children that live on that street, okay? And whether it's the same time or whether it's not, there's still going to be an increased amount of traffic, okay? You paved Burke Street, then you dug it up. You paved Burke Street and you dug it up. And if you think I'm wrong, then I'll get all the bus drivers here because they go through that street all the time, okay? Have you addressed the situation with the lights, okay? 2 buses can get out of that parking lot, and I know they called the DPW multiple times on that issue, okay? 2 years ago, I called the DPW and actually spoke to Commissioner Bergeron when you first, a couple of years ago at some function, and said the traffic, the school lights on Broad Street, they go to 11 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That hasn't been addressed. The board's not doing their job, in my opinion, okay? Let's get it right. And that's all I have to say. I'm against the project. I think you should sell the property, cut your losses. I agree with Mr. Sullivan. Cut your losses. Keep the land for the wastewater and sell the rest, or tear down the building. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
This will be a little lighter, I think. Maybe talking about money. My name is Peter Schaefer. I live on 15 East Street, just off East Hollis, just before you go across the bridge to Hudson. I retired a year and a half ago, so I'm doing a lot of walking now for health reasons. And maybe I know there's meetings down at Riverside, and maybe this is more for the Riverside thing, but I wasn't really quite sure where to go. The levee that we have down there, so as long as I've lived down there, I could always walk on the other side of the levee, the water side of the levee. That's a nice area to walk down in. And for some reason or other, it's no longer getting mowed. So I don't know if that was part of a plan or whether it's just not getting mowed anymore. And I found it to be somewhat of a nuisance, but I said, what the hell, right? But I was diagnosed with Lyme disease a few weeks ago, so I'm not saying I got it there, but you're going through pretty high stuff now because the stuff isn't being mowed. So I guess I don't know what the process is and how things can change and how people will know what to do about that. So I figured I'll come here. Somebody will have my ear on that one. I appreciate that. One other quick little item is that last year the gas company redid all the gas lines on East Hollis down there and the Alphabet Streets. They did my street as well, East Street. They did a really good job putting everything back together again on East Street. but Hollis is still dug open and it's never been filled. Okay, so, you know, we kind of wake up at nights because the buildings on the Alphabet Street shake. Now, I really got together with someone a few weeks ago, and they told me they were looking into that. But what I was thinking about is sort of what's the process? Because that was a year ago, and our buildings are still shaking. It doesn't happen during rush hour because the rush hour traffic's slow enough where the trucks don't hit those bumps really hard. When there's not a rush hour, especially in the middle of the night, when big trucks go by, they shake the buildings. And so I was kind of wondering whether there is like a quality control process that makes sure all these utilities, whoever go in there, do their thing to patch it back up again. Because they did in a lot of places. I know they're gonna put a circle down there 2 years from now, whatever, and a lot of other stuff, but we can't really leave it open like that. So I'm kind of, that's really why I came here today, for those two reasons. But I feel I want to say something about Burke Street simply because everybody has said something about Burke Street. I don't really know much about it, except I live on 15 East Street, and in 1936, the water was on up to the second floor of that building, okay? There's a levee there now, but that levee, if we had a 36 flood today, that levee would not be high enough. That would still all be full of water. So what that means to Burke Street is that if we had a flood like a 36 flood again, Burke Street property would also get flooded. You'd have more problems than that because you get the sewage treatment plant would get flooded, and Thoreau's Landing would get flooded, lots of things would get flooded, and it's extremely rare. It's like a New Orleans thing, okay? But I just point out is that at least what you should have is a contingency plan to pull all the trucks and stuff out, the equipment that you need after all this stuff gets harmed that you have to then fix. And of course, you're probably gonna do that anyway, but I just thought I'd mention that because someday it will happen again. So, thank you.
Mr. Schaefer?
Pappas.
Mr. Schaefer, would you leave your contact information, and we'll have somebody get back to you regarding your
They
concerns.
said they would, so.
That was going to be my question.
Yeah.
They said they would
Thank
get
you.
back to me, but I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. I'll make sure that happens.
Thank you.
All right. We've received public comment. We're now on to aldermanic referral. Is there a motion regarding R-17-117?
Under letter A, R-17-117, I make a motion authorizing the mayor and city treasurer to issue bonds not to exceed the amount of $28,500,000 for work on Phase 1 of the Consolidated Public Works Facility located on Burke Street in the Performing Arts Center.
All right, so there needs to be a motion as to whether the Board of Public Works wishes to recommend that ordinance, or is that a motion to recommend it?
That was a motion to, that's a
That's
motion to
what we usually
recommend,
do.
yeah.
That's okay, fine, I just didn't,
Yeah.
it wasn't clear to me. All right, sorry. Motion to recommend final passage or motion to recommend that the Board of Aldermen pass R-17-117. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Pappas.
I will say, when we went ahead to go and purchase this building, I voted no because I didn't have enough information. It was kind of buy it as is. There was no, apparently, I think the seller was not allowing a building inspection. And it's one thing if you want to spend your own money, it's another thing when it's taxpayers' money. But I did realize that supposedly, well, what if we have to expand the wastewater treatment facility? Having been on the Board of Public Works for 8 years at the time, it's been close to 10 now, I realized that a lot of times questions weren't answered, so if I didn't have sufficient answers, my vote would be no, which is why I voted no. I understand why some people voted yes, because they felt that it was a great deal, you know, whatever, we were gonna get a terrific deal. Given what we know now, I feel very strongly that I think we got to give a guesstimate. If we think that at some point we're going to have expansion of the wastewater treatment facility, we're going to have to give a guess as to what we should use for land. We should take whatever we think we need, and then we should put the building back up for sale. The problem here is twofold. Not only is it going to cost $50 million, but you're also taking a building off the tax rolls, and it's also a building which can possibly be developed in such a way that will bring jobs in. We've heard a lot about economic development, and I think that economic development can be happening in a lot of places other than just downtown. And there were several other items that were not looked into. There was never a neighborhood meeting regarding just Burke Street. We've never had a traffic study done as to what's going to happen to that neighborhood when we inject that many more trucks into the area. Rather than making us more efficient, I think it's going to make us less efficient. By contract, all ASME employees, which is the vast majority, are supposed to start at 20 minutes to 7 in the morning. So if to avoid a traffic jam, we have people hanging around the place for periods of time, work is not getting done, because you don't want to send all those trucks out at the same time. So I think it makes us less efficient, not more efficient, and there's a big difference between $10 million and $50 million. And essentially what we're doing here is getting an extremely expensive, posh office building. And once we do that, then we're essentially going to just stay with an expensive office building, or we're going to rely on boards in the future to go ahead and to redo the garage and the whole and everything else. And in that point in time, we don't even know what the cost will be. I think we should cut our losses. There's a huge difference between 10 million and 50 million. We didn't do our homework, and that's been a problem in the past. We have a number of buildings throughout the city, and, you know, I know that I know that it's getting late, but $50 million is a lot of money, so I will go ahead and speak to it. And I understand why others in the audience wanted to speak about the downtown property. Well, and it should really, the two should not be tied together, but they are. And I think that folks should have been able to speak on that, if indeed that they're tied together here for us. But my word of advice to the Board of Aldermen and to the mayor would be that we take a different approach. We're careful about how we spend our own money. And this is, people do not have a choice. They pay their taxes. And we have people that really are struggling financially. And my feeling is if the city has approach to things have been fire, aim, ready. We don't do our homework. We don't assess what properties we have and see what we need in the future. For example, there was big talk about the public health building. We desperately need a new public health building. So I don't know if that's fallen off the radar screen or if we're just not going to deal with it. But if we do deal with the public health building, and we think public health should go elsewhere, we're going to buy another building. What's going to happen to that building? We have the Court Street building. Okay, well, everyone says that's a lousy building. Well, we still own it. So I think at a certain point, we need to take some kind of inventory as a city, what do we need? What are our needs as a city? What buildings do we own? Are they too expensive to fix? Are we gonna raise them? Are we gonna raise the, Court Street to put in parking? I don't know. But I think just to continue to take shots in the dark and buy buildings and sink money into them and then sink more and more money, same thing happened on Riverside, I just don't think is a good way to go. And I think the fire aim ready approach we should not do. And, if we were to go ask the citizens of Nashua, what do you think? What are your needs? What do you think would make your quality of life better? I don't think a $50 million public works facility would be up there with people. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Commissioner Bergeron?
I just want to talk a little bit about the process. So it's probably, a couple of years ago since we purchased this building, and at the time, Commissioner Pappas was here, Commissioner Moriarty, myself, the mayor was Alderman at large at the time. I don't remember, Alderman Siegel, I still believe, was our liaison. It came up, the opportunity came up, we purchased the building. At the time, my feeling was it abutted the wastewater treatment plant, and it made sense for us to buy it. The building was on the market, it made sense for us to buy it. In the event that we'd ever needed to expand the wastewater treatment plant, they talked about warehouses and things. There was never any cost estimates at that time to show what the cost would be to 10 to 15 million. And that's certainly not on Mayor Donchis because he wasn't the mayor at the time. So if the previous administration floated the number, that was the number that floated. It made sense to buy that building. I still think it made sense to buy that building because of the location of that building next to the wastewater treatment plant. This process is working the way it's supposed to work. So we've had numerous meetings. So it wasn't just a shot in the dark where we came up with 49 million. We've met numerous times. We interviewed a whole bunch of design and engineering firms that came in, and we formed a committee, of which I was this board's liaison. Director Fota was on it, Alderman Dean, and many of the city staff, so it wasn't Andy Patrician and John and Nick Caggiano. And
Alderman
many,
McCarthy as well.
And I was going to say, and then at some point when we realized, wait a second, this is going to be a lot more money than we expected it to be. Not that we wouldn't have brought in Alderman McCarthy, who is the president of the Board of Aldermen, but we said to ourselves, well, wait a second, this is not going to be $25 million. This is going to be 35, 40 possibly, and take down the warehouse. And we brought in Alderman at large McCarthy, who's the president of the Board of Aldermen. And Kim Kleiner attended many of the meetings on the mayor's behalf, and I'm not sure if the mayor was at the meetings, but she's the chief of staff for the mayor. So a lot of due diligence has been done on this building to get to this point. So this is a natural process, and this is where we're at. What we're going to do with the building always was going to be a group discussion with the Board of Public Works, the Board of Aldermen, and obviously the mayor's office, of course. So I would just say that a lot of people worked a lot of hours on this. And so if people think that they need information, absolutely. I think John Vancour sat in on these meetings, and he was in charge of the Broad Street Parkway, an $82 million project. Whether you liked it or you didn't like it, at the end of the day, his work, everyone praised John Vancour's work, and he sat with us through this process. So if people feel like they need information, so for tonight, I won't support passing this tonight, and that we do need more information, and I certainly think that's reasonable for people if they're not comfortable with going ahead more information. But I just want to say that a whole bunch of people put in a whole lot of hours on this, and so it wasn't just we came up with $49 million that, we met in the wintertime. It was like a foot of snow on the ground, and I was hoping they were going to cancel the meeting, and we all had the meeting at Riverside Drive. So people did put in a lot of time and effort and hours on this, and certainly this is the process that it certainly needs to be vetted through the proper boards and the proper channels, and I think that's what we're doing now. Thank you.
More? Commissioner Ackerman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I may not speak as eloquently as the past two commissioners, but I too am a little concerned on doing the right thing for the community at large. I don't know if it's the right time to go off and allocate or bond an initially $13 million plus a follow-on of $36 million at some point down the road to do the barn. I'm all for efficiency, however, I just don't know if putting the cost expense on the city residents is the right thing to do at this time. So my recommendation is, number one, I think we should split the bond or bifurcate it, as you indicated earlier, and move it forward to the aldermen with the way you plan to do it. But I can't support this at this time.
Anyone else? Commissioner Moriarty, do you have anything?
I would just say, Mayor, that although there was a special committee established, this board has not met to discuss it as a full board. We have not, there was a consultant hired, which we have not met with that consultant, John Vancourt, or the architects. So that may have been, they have not been with our board going over the plans. So, I mean, until that happens, I would have to reserve a positive vote on this until we can do that and discuss it as a board.
All right, well, the motion that's pending is to recommend passage of the, as I interpreted the motion, the public works portion of the proposed bond issue.
No, it's the motion that we have. The combined motion is the one that's been made and
So
seconded.
do you want to recommend that they divide it, or what do you want to do on that? Rather get.
We're ready to vote as it is, I am anyway.
All
Yes,
right,
I
so
make a recommendation.
Motion is to recommend passage. All those in favor say aye. You said you were ready to vote, so I'm calling the vote.
Okay, but
All those,
just-
all,
it's
you
not
not?
passage, I think, I just want to clarify something. Usually for us, it's not passage, it's either a positive or negative recommendation, and I think that,
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, the recommendation, positive means you're recommending that they pass it. Negative means you're recommending that they not.
okay, I just wanted to clarify, all right.
Positive is fine, or however you want to phrase it. All those, so the motion here is that we recommend that the Board of Aldermen pass this, or in another way of saying it, that we make a positive recommendation. All those in favor of the motion say aye. And the motion fails. Is there a motion to make a negative recommendation, or recommend that the
I'll move for negative recommendation.
there's a motion that we make a negative recommendation, or alternatively phrase that we recommend that the Board of Aldermen not pass the bond issue. Is there any discussion on that motion?
I would second the motion.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 And the motion passes. And the Board of Public Works negatively recommends, or recommends that the Board of Aldermen not pass the bond issue. Next on the agenda is Park Rec.
I'll move to approve the selection of Mr. Paul Haskell of Nashua, New Hampshire, for the position of foreman at the Parks and Recreation Department. Funding for the salary for the position will be $31.08 per hour. Funding through Department 177 Parks and Recreation Fund, General Account Classification, Salary and Wages.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second the motion.
Any discussion?
I'd like to just say that Mr. Haskell is here. He's been patiently waiting.
Sorry.
And,
Still want the job after all this?
You picked the wrong meeting.
I don't know why he'd accept it.
yeah, he's probably regretting that now. I wouldn't blame you. But I do want to say that
Sorry.
I've interviewed for a lot of foreman positions since becoming director, and this was the strongest group of candidates I think I've ever seen. Losing my voice a little bit, excuse me. But all 5 of them would have made good foremen, really. And, you know, I congratulate Paul for being able to get the job. Great job, and he's been a great employee over the years, and we're really excited to have him as our new foreman in Park and Rec.
Great. We need something positive right now.
We actually
haven't
I
voted.
decided that after I got-
Oh, sorry.
All right, all those,
Is the clap the vote?
all those in
apologize.
favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and the motion passes.
Phew. Now we can clap.
Item B.
I'll move to approve this purchase and installation of 56,000 square feet of turf grass sod from the low bidder, Tuckahoe Turf Farms at Wood River Junction, Rhode Island, for the amount not to exceed $26,640. Funding will be through Department 177, Parks and Recreation Funds, General Activity, Charlotte Ave Field Improvements.
Second the motion?
You've heard the motion. No, Mr. Caggiano, we didn't call you up, but do you want to come up just in case anybody has any questions, not about this, but anything that we might be involved in? Anyway, the motion is to pass item B as proposed. Is there a second?
Second.
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 Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion?
Can I just,
Commissioner Bergeron?
so this is the Charlotte Ave. What is the time frame?
We're working rapidly over there. We've gotten great assistance from engineering and street department, Mr. Ibarra. We're anticipating to finish the heavy grading work next week. At that point, we'll be able to start our irrigation process. We already started inside the school. And I anticipate us sodding and seeding in mid-September, and a dedication in third, fourth week of September.
Wow.
Things are going well over there.
That's good. Look forward to extra fields.
Commissioner Ackerman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Caggiano, you mentioned seeding, so this 56,000 won't take care of the entire fields, correct?
It will take care of the 2 playing surfaces.
Okay.
Then we'll seed the ancillary areas off of that.
Excellent. And after that, when do you think it might be ready for use? Just curious.
I've been discussing it with the principal, and we're coming up with a plan. They may be, depending on the weather, they may be able to get play on there or recess in early November. We're going to need about 4 or 5 weeks of grow time before we start allowing masses of children to run around.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
I'll move to approve the purchase of a 2017 Toro Groundmaster 5910D mower from Turf Products Corporation of Enfield, Connecticut, for the price of $104,837 pursuant to Massachusetts State Contract FAC 71. Funding will be through Department 177 Parks and Recreation Fund, Trust Activity Surf.
Second the motion?
Any discussion?
Can you just walk us through where this is used, Nick? I know you've, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Superintendent.
These are large 16-foot mowers that are used on athletic fields and the major parks, Greeley Park, Lincoln, Russell, Artillery Lane. We have 2 of them. We use them in rotation, so this one is the next replacement that's on the surf schedule. They're the main pieces of equipment that lets us get our jobs done in the shortest amount of time. Takes a 16-foot cut in one pass.
And the other mower will go in a backup roll, at least for now?
Correct,
Because
that's
it's
what
just junk.
we've done. The new one will take the heavy roll, and then the older mower will stay close to the north end. There's a lot of moving parts. The 2010 is, we're starting to incur big cost on repairs there, hydraulic motors, lines. They just wear out, and
Is the
this
shell-
is the workhorse of the department, these mowers.
Sorry. Is the shelf life on those by hours generally? So
Excuse
it's not
me,
age,
yes.
it's hours.
No, it's just hours.
Yeah.
They don't even have odometers, it's just hours machines. And this is pretty much the life expectancy, and that's how we've
what I was
done it.
going to with the
Actually,
life
we deferred this an extra year. This purchase was supposed to happen last year, but the decision was made to defer the SURF for 1 year. So we're actually purchasing last year's replacement mower.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
I'll move to approve the selection of Ms. Nicole Sawyer of Londonderry, New Hampshire, for the position of Groundsman 1 at the Parks and Recreation Department. Starting salary for the position is $21 per hour. Funding is through Department 177, Parks and Recreation, General Account Classifications, 51 salary and wages.
Second?
Discussion? Is Ms. Sawyer here by any chance?
No, she's not.
All right. Motion is made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? And the motion passes.
Thank you.
Before Nick leaves, before Mr. Caggiano leaves, I would like to mention that the Silver Knights played at Holman all year long. They won the championship, but the field was in fantastic shape. Everybody was extremely pleased with just the whole place, the whole condition of everything all summer long. And I think everybody really appreciates your efforts in that regard.
Thank you. Thank you. You'll see in the notes, we have a couple of events coming up. We were able to secure a cricket tournament in September, and there's a food truck festival coming up, so, thanks.
Could I just,
Commissioner Bergeron.
I'm just on the cricket tournament, I saw Latha Manjapudi, and she said, hey, there's a cricket tournament, and she said maybe one of the commissioners would come and want to, I don't know if they throw out the first ball or hit the first ball, and I said, so if they do call you, I think you would be, I know you've been wanting to have camps or things and have talked about it a couple times. I said, well, Commissioner Moriarty would probably be the person to, is it the first hit or the first?
Well, I will be there on the first day, but I'm going to defer to Commissioner Moriarty, because I know he's a cricket fan, and we need him out there that day.
I don't want to embarrass myself, so I would.
Any other discussion? Commissioner Pappas?
This is something I've noticed and a lot of people through the community have noticed. And if you, I spoke with Superintendent Caggiano at the beginning of the meeting regarding a certain fungus for maple trees, and it appears to be mostly the Norwegian maples. And just if you can go over it and just to, explain people if their trees are going to die or what's going on.
We've been getting a lot of calls. It's a very good year for maple tar spot, which puts a black blister on the maple leaves. And it's a cosmetic disease. It will not kill the tree, will not harm it. The reason it's here, it lives on leaf litter, which if you don't do a good job cleaning up your leaves at the end of the year, those spores are on there. And when you have a heavy rainy spring, like we had in May, those spores get released, and you'll see the smaller trees get affected more than the taller ones because how the spores migrate through the air. They're airborne little microspores. They will not hurt the tree. They're cosmetic. Depending on how wet a spring you have is going to determine how bad the disease is. They really don't treat for it. It's, again, just a cosmetic thing. Clean up your leaves and take them off site is the best way to control it.
Thank you.
Any other comments? If not, thank you, Mr. Caggiano.
Thank you.
Solid Waste Department.
I'll move to approve the hiring of Vernon Johnson III of Hudson, New Hampshire, at the position of Equipment Operator, Solid Waste Department. Starting salary for the position will be $24.60 per hour. Funding will be through Department 168, Solid Waste Fund, Solid Waste Account Classification, 51 salary and wages.
Second the motion?
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
I'll move to accept the retirement of Paul Wallace, street foreman, effective September 18th, 2017.
Second?
Excuse me, is there discussion?
I just thank him for his service, 32 years with the city. That's, again, I'm on the, as I've mentioned a few times, the liaison to the pension board, and I see a lot of the guys, and when you look with somebody, you know, the younger people change jobs so often, and so somebody, when you think of 32 years of snowstorms in the city and the parks and everything else, that's an awful long time, so just thank him for.
He's a very knowledgeable guy, and we will definitely miss his
A lot of
expertise.
institutional knowledge,
There
and
is, he
retiring
does have a lot of
is,
institutional, he's a very talented man.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Item B.
I'll move to approve the selection of Joseph Santon of Nashua, New Hampshire to the position of Auto Mechanic 1, First Class. Street Department's salary will be $26.91 per hour. Funding through Department 161, Street Fund, General Account Classification 51, Salary and Wages.
Second?
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item C.
Before I go ahead and make the motion, I'm just wondering if there's if it would be a huge problem if we put this off through next month and saw, if we went ahead and had the, what the requirements are for the position, and there was some discussion, I don't want to go into too much detail. It looks like we had trouble finding folks for this position, and I just was interested to see what the requirements were and why we had such an issue with the position. I don't want to.
Well, I can answer that.
I don't want to go
Commissioner.
into,
So, Mr. Lavoy had applied originally for the position, and he did not meet the minimum qualifications really for the position. And so we looked, it's been superintendent years. Yeah, it's been a long time, and we looked, we exhausted all our resources, we checked with DOT, we checked with private industry, we looked everywhere to try to find somebody. We believe this is really a needed position. We couldn't, I think we had one gentleman that we thought was interested, and then he backed out. He lived down south. So we decided that our only alternative was to hire an internal candidate and train them for the position. So that's where we are, unfortunately.
because that was part of the question. I didn't want to be evasive, but
Yeah, yep.
I guess, since we don't normally have the job description right there, but I guess my questions would be, where were people lacking? And what we're going to do to get the person, I mean, clearly, it's been with the department for a bit, and whatever areas that need some boosting up, what we would do for that.
So, we're fortunate enough to have one of the best traffic techs as our traffic foreman now, as he moved up. So he'll be able to assist in the training of this individual. Roger's been in the area, in the traffic, since 2013, so he's
Right.
familiar with operations. And a lot of his work will really be in a maintenance capacity, changing out failed lights, resetting a traffic cabinet after a thunderstorm goes through. I don't expect that he's gonna go and replace conflict monitors right off and certain components inside a traffic cabinet after a lightning strike. We do have side contractors that assist us with that, and he'll be able to call our traffic foreman, who can walk him through certain aspects of that if need be. But right now, we have one traffic tech, and he's the only guy that's available for any emergencies or shutdowns, and he's taxed, he's burnt. He gave me the call phone, said, "Oh, you can have that back until further notice." So to have somebody within house that we can train and bring up to speed, and that can respond to those incidents and actually reset an intersection which he can do now, it's worth having that person to take the call phone and share those calls, because we're burning out our one traffic tech.
I understand that. So do we have the resources to be able to train this person
Yes, we do.
in-house? Okay.
Yep.
Um,
And there are courses that are put on through UNH and
Okay.
through the state as well, that we can send this individual to, once
Okay.
he's working in the capacity.
That being said,
Mhm.
we have vacations and that sort of thing. Do we have people in the offing who might be willing to take some sort of, do we have other people during vacations or something, or is there like a company that we call?
Yes.
Because this is pretty serious, it's a-
Typically use Electric Light out of Southern
Okay.
Maine. I forget the name of the town, but they're out of Southern Maine. They're usually here within an hour, hour and a half, worst case,
Okay.
for a traumatic event. We've used them for accidents where mast arms are knocked down, lightning strikes that wipe out all the components of the cabin. So we do have those on call.
So we don't think it's worth, like maybe training someone else from the street department in-house, just in case we get into a jam, or,
I'm totally for training, yeah.
I mean,
We
I
do
don't know
train.
if that would be worth it.
Part of this will be training for him.
Right,
As I
right.
said, the traffic foreman
Right.
we're fortunate to have is
Right.
very knowledgeable.
But what I'm saying is if we just have two people in-house,
Yeah,
might it be worth us trying to,
sure, we do offer cross-training opportunities within the department, so yes.
because that seems to me was because that's been a problem, because it has been such a small department.
Sure.
I certainly would hope, and it's great that we do have that company from Maine, but I think it's really good to have people in-house also.
I would agree.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So I guess I'll go ahead and, did I make I don't think I made
No
the
motion.
motion. Okay, I'll move to approve the selection of Roger Lavoy of Merrimack, New Hampshire, to the position of Traffic Tech 1 at the Street Department. Starting salary will be $27.89 per hour. Funding will be through Department 161 Fund, Street Fund, General Account Classification 51, Salary and Wages.
Second the motion?
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item D.
I'll move to approve the use of Southeast Quadrant funds for South Main Street Sidewalk Project in an amount not to exceed $12,000. Funding for this purchase is through Department 161 Streets Fund, Trust, Account Classifications, 61 Supplies and Materials.
Second the motion?
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Wastewater.
Mayor, excuse me, may I just say one thing? We'd like to pull motion C from the agenda. We're just not prepared at this time to go forward with that.
The Ford Fusion one?
Yes,
Okay.
thank
So
you.
C is off the agenda.
I meant to say it at the beginning, but there was
No
so
problem.
much
I was on a
confusion
roll.
that I
Questions
forgot.
on C, that's,
So motion C. I'd like to
Okay,
pull.
yeah, no S in our cars, yeah, all right. I'll move to approve the use of warrants as presented.
Second the motion?
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item D.
I'll move to approve the purchase of a 2017 Ford F-350 with 4,000-pound crane for the replacement of wastewater vehicle 136, an amount of $67,408 from MHQ in Marlboro, Mass. Funding will be through Department 169 Wastewater Fund, WRF Collections, Account Classifications 81, Machinery and Equipment.
Second the motion?
Discussion? Commissioner Moriarty?
I just had one question on that motion. I don't know who wants to answer that, but I noticed
Ms. Osborne is gonna come up.
the vehicle also comes with a new plow. I was just wondering why we couldn't use the old plow on this vehicle. I know it was a Chevy pickup that we're getting rid of, I believe, but wouldn't the old plow fit this new vehicle? Because it's a $6,000 addition.
Noelle Osborne, Plant Operations Supervisor Wastewater. I am deferring to the judgment of the fleet manager. He recommended the total package that went through. So I didn't ask that question specifically, but I imagine that it is a similar reason, like it won't fit or it's it's ending its useful life or of that nature. So I did defer to the fleet operations manager for that.
Might add that our plows see a lot of abuse.
He should be coming up. He should be coming up.
Yep. You come up, John.
Yes, if you're going to provide input, it's better if you come on up. Mr. Ibarra?
I just wanted to add that our plows see a lot of abuse out there, and it is old. So if they're making that assessment that it should be replaced with the new vehicle, it's probably valid.
Thank you.
Commissioner Pappas?
Might we keep it just in case, might we keep it just in case?
It'll go into what we would call the boneyard.
A rehab?
If there's any parts that they can scrap off of that and use, if something's damaged, say a headlight or a piston, they will utilize those parts.
Okay, so including the plow?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Yep.
Anything else?
Can I ask a wastewater?
Commissioner Bergeron.
That was the end of our wastewater?
Well, we still have this motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Then
So why don't we do the motion, and then any questions or comments, Ms. Osborne, we could ask them. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Commissioner Bergeron?
This afternoon, when I was looking through information on Burke Street and all, and I came across this wastewater infrastructure assessment that we had done from Weston and Sampson, and that was on July 9 of 2015, so then I just started thumbing through it, and there were a lot of recommendations up there. Could we ever get an update, or did we, and then maybe we did? There was a lot of what I felt, and I scribbled, and I don't want to go line by line now, and nor, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but we did have them come in, and I'm sure a lot of it, as I did read, a lot of the work has been done, I know, and just to see where we're at, because they did have some recommendations in here, and just to be sure that,
Sure.
just
We
for
c-
my own.
It's been a long time since I looked at that. I think it's a long time since
Yeah,
you
I
were
mean,
to Noel.
I had a
But
lot
we-
of.
We certainly can, we can pull it out and give you
It's a
an
good
update
idea.
on what.
Right, I mean, they had a lot of good recommendations. It said here, the work schedule should be updated, who's responsible for this. It said should be a plan for maintaining the accuracy of of work will also be required. You know, just, and again, I know I've asked not numerous, but I mean, I've asked like, oh, the work schedule being updated, and we spent, I'm just saying, we did have this, and I was just wondering.
I can't tell you the work schedule's been updated. We-
And I know
we
I've
have
asked
to-
you that when I didn't
we
mean
have done
numerous
that,
times,
but-
like you had an answer that I know.
Yeah.
And when I came on the board, it's always like, it's on the work schedule to me. If it's in the plan, then I'm
Right.
fine, you know, similar to SURF. If it's in the plan, then it's in the plan, and unless we need to defer for any reason. So it was just a question.
Sure.
didn't-
Yep. We'll plan to do that.
I don't
for
need
next meeting.
I'm just,
Yep.
as a general, not to put you on the spot tonight.
We want to stay here till 11 o'clock
Well,
discussing
my
the
wife's
update.
actually visiting my granddaughter in Minnesota, so I really could stay as long as, I've got nothing to do, so.
Any other questions or comments regarding wastewater? If not, we'll go on to engineering. Maybe Mr. Dukran, are you here?
He's here.
Come on up in case there are questions, I don't know.
I'll move to approve the residential and commercial wastewater service permits and fees as submitted.
Second the motion?
Motion is made and seconded. All those, discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and the motion passes.
I'll move to approve the hardship request from Skirvianos Group excavate for installation of utility service for redevelopment of property at 36 and 38 Broad Street.
Second the motion?
Discussion?
Walk through it.
All those in favor say aye. Whoops.
Mr. Mayor?
Pardon?
Mr. Ackerman.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Ackerman?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I'm not mistaken, this is the property that's already under construction now for the better half of 3.5 months. The former site of Dairy Queen on Broad Street, is that correct? Wouldn't it be maybe it's just I'm new to this, but wouldn't it be wise and appropriate for them to come to the city of Nashua to ask them for this hardship case before they started to build the facility? Or am I just, is that just, doesn't happen in reality?
Steve Dukran, city engineer. The Broad Street Parkway project was going on for quite a few years, and we knew that a Dairy Queen was going to change hands. However, the developer at the time did not know what they were going to put in place. So it's difficult for them to figure out whether they needed new utilities, new sewer connections, and so on. Because we advised them that it's best to try and get your utilities before we do the final paving, but they simply did not know what their layout was, and so on. And so it was difficult for them to determine whether they would need to cut into the new pavement at the time. Later on, when they came to the city with a plan, we had already paved the street. It was a Dunkin' Donuts. It's a Dunkin' Donuts that's going in there.
Okay. So, I mean, we have this program, we have a hardship type of process that they can go through. Would it be unreasonable to think that they could pave? I mean, that's a relatively brand-new paved road. Would it be unreasonable to think that since they're going to get the benefit of a lot of traffic and a lot of business as a result, that they could pave from the point that they cut into the road all the way to the railroad tracks, westbound, as opposed to what might look like a patch?
It's a little bit more than the patch. The ordinance requires that they pave 20 feet curb to curb, the whole width of the road, in each direction of the trench that they create. So in the end, I think the sketch that's attached shows the length of paving. The next page.
Maybe I don't have it.
This,
That could very well be like 100 feet
Okay.
of the roadway.
There we go. I found it. Thank you.
Any other discussion, questions? Commissioner Pappas?
I'm not a fan of granting these hardships. I voted no last month. I think that asking the citizens of Nashua to fund a paving program we're going to do. I'm not in favor of these. I think the one we did a few months ago, where there was like maybe 6 months left, and the person still did a huge patch, that was one thing. But I'm not in favor of these. They say ignorance of the law is no defense, but we did. That being said, I think the board granted one last month or the month before, and I voted against it, and I'll vote against this one. Thank you.
Commissioner Bergeron?
yeah, I mean, we talked at our meeting, I think it was in June, the one that we granted on Manchester Street. I think we talked about it for an hour, just on that,
A
with
long time.
Attorney Prunier, who was representing that client, and does obviously a lot of commercial and development, represents clients, and Mr. Petropoulos and the city engineer. And then back to, again, we're gonna have to come up with some kind of a better plan, because I would agree with Commissioner Ackerman. I mean, how can we, as a business person, how can I not grant this? Because we're not gonna stall somebody's business and employment and taxes and everything else that will be gained from that. But also, I would agree that these are gonna come to us almost like, well, they're just gonna approve it. And that's what's gonna happen going forward, and that we're gonna have to, back to, we talked at length about, I don't know, and we don't need to talk about, I guess, at length about it again, but somehow get the message out to the people in the commercial community and what have you about the, and even residential developers, whether it's through the building associations and what have you, to make sure the word is out. Because again, how can we not, I mean, I'm speaking, I guess, for myself. I will vote to grant this, but as we pave all these roads going forward, we're gonna get a lot of these. And, because we're gonna be just paving so many more roads, so we're just gonna be getting a lot of these. And then even as us from a city, you know, maybe if we knew that, like we did on the Fairmont Street project, where we had a long discussion on that, where we stopped the pavement, and we said, well, why don't we stop and give them X amount of time to figure it out? And I don't know if we could have done that here or not, but maybe that's something we would consider doing than just granting the hardships and having the roads. I don't know if that's better or worse, but.
Anyone else? Commissioner Pappas?
But it sounds like the developer was given fair warning.
There is the purchaser of the property, and then there's that purchaser now has to get a developer in, and in this case it was someone from Dunkin' Donuts. So the property was at the time being sold, but they didn't know exactly what was going in. So I don't see how it was practical for them to ask, or to put in utilities if they didn't know what was going in. There's a chance that they wouldn't have needed to do new utilities. If the new use would have used the same old utilities, there's a chance that they wouldn't have had to cut into the new street. It's a very difficult situation, and going back to how this ordinance was constructed, if remember in 2004, the whole idea then was to limit the number of cuts after the street's paved. But if you had to do so, the restoration requirements will be stringent. It's not a low cost to have to pave 40 feet in addition to what your trenches are. It's pretty costly, especially for a wide street like this one. So it does put an extra burden on anyone who wants to do this. It's more of a deterrent.
Traffic too, yeah.
And how we tried to reduce our risk in crafting the ordinance back then was the trench itself, cutting back 3 feet in each direction, going down 18 inches of gravel, whether you have an existing 18 or not. In most cases, you do have a lot less. And then adding your pavement thickness 2 inches on top of what you have today. All of that made it difficult for anyone who wanted to cut into a street. So the city did take measures, and I think the ordinance was a good ordinance to protect the city. Expecting that, we will have a number of these requests. In our normal paving, we do advise the abutters ahead of time. Your street is going to be paved. If you want to do work, go ahead. You have X time to do it. The Fairmont Street situation, there's always a risk of putting off the paving, that the development will not go through. And what happens then? In this case, the Broad Street Parkway had to be paved. If we had to wait for another year or so, and the plan came to the city and didn't get approved through the planning board, then we would have waited for nothing. So it's we have to look at it with reason. We have to look at it in a practical way, and therefore the standards that we have in place, I think they work. So this board, all you have to do is determine whether this is a hardship or not.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Ackerman?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one more question, Mr. DeCrane. On Amher Street, between where Edgewood Cemetery ends and as you go up towards Rite Aid on the in that area, I recall recently going along that area, and there was digs into the road or repairs that were made, but I don't recall seeing that pavement 20 feet wide being replaced. Was that a different situation?
Yes.
Okay.
Let me just explain it, because we got a lot of questions about that section of street, Amher Street. That street is scheduled to be paved. It was originally scheduled to be paved, and we had a the coordination with utility companies, both the water company and gas company, both had to replace their old mains for the entire length. Each one is a pretty significant project. So they're done, and they have restored their trenches. What needs to be done now is to finally do the entire paving, which is being funded with the surplus Broad Street Parkway money,
Okay.
which is now being dictated by the state as to how to develop that project. That's somewhat of a slow process, not really unexpected. So that's what we're waiting on to get the okay from the state to contract this paving work.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay?
Nay?
I'll vote aye and the motion passes. Item C,
I'll make a motion to change the title of the position Construction Inspector Engineering Assistant to Assistant Construction Engineer. Eliminate the position of CSO Technician Inspector and to add the position of Assistant Construction Engineer in the City Engineering Department in UAW Professional Unit at grade 13. Funding will be through Department 169 Wastewater Fund, Wastewater Account Classification, 51 Salaries and Wages.
Second the motion?
discussion?
Can we walk, I'm sorry,
Just walk through.
Pardon?
could we just re-walk through the reasoning of why we're?
Yes, of course, yes. So discussion, questions, and you have a question for Mr. Dukran?
No, if you could just explain the, I mean, I did read it, but is it really changing the job description, basically changing the title only?
All right, so I can, because let me walk through the whole thing. So there are two parts to this motion. The first one is changing the title of a current position. The current title is Construction Inspector Engineering Assistant. And we believe, because of the kind of work that this position does, and the requirement for having a bachelor's degree in engineering, civil engineering, the title is more appropriate if it's an assistant construction engineer, as opposed to this long title that it currently has. So that's the recommendation, and I can go through what the position does. It was created, that position was created in 2014. It's a higher position than just an inspector. Not only does it require an engineering degree, but it does independent field work, engineering type work. And that's why we're asking for a title change, no change in the pay, no change in the union. It's the same UAW professional union.
No change in the job description either.
And yeah, exactly the same job description as it is now.
So the,
Commissioner Bergeron?
so the position always required a bachelor's in engineering?
That's correct.
Okay.
So
Commissioner Moriarty?
I just had a question, Mr. Dukran. You mentioned the position is currently held by Todd Welsh, PE.
that's correct.
And is he planning on resuming the new title?
Yes, he will.
He will be, because in your description, you state upon board approval, the vacancy will be advertised.
No.
Why would we need to do that?
That's
That's the second part.
that's the second part of the motion.
Oh, that's the second part of the motion, okay.
Yes.
That's, sorry.
Yeah. So,
Thank you.
So the first part is just the title change to the existing position. The second part of the motion is, we have a vacant position called a CSO Technician Inspector, created by a recent retirement. And like we did in 2014, when we replaced an inspector retiring then with Mr. Welch's position, we would like to do the same thing. Get a new position that requires an engineering degree and performing the same kind of duties at an elevated level. And that's what we're asking for, to eliminate the current position, create another position of the assistant engineer, and then we can advertise that.
It sounds like it should have been two different motions, but
whatever it's in, what you combine them both, yeah.
It's virtually, it's the same position, that's why he combined them. So both of these people will hold the same position. That's why he combined them.
I guess, Mr. Mayor, my confusion is, so it's an additional headcount, correct?
No, no additional headcount. So,
Am I missing something?
yeah, well,
I'm
let me
also
take a
confused.
stab at
I'm
this.
confused.
So.
Yes, but
So
so am I.
Todd, so Todd Welch is going simply from a construction inspector, engineering assistant to assistant construction engineer. So that's the same person.
Right.
And then we had Mr. Haberman, who was the CSO technician inspector, retired. And Engineer Dukran feels that adding another assistant construction engineer as, like Mr. Welch's position, would better serve his department. So he'd like to eliminate the CSO technician inspector and add the assistant construction engineer position. So same head count, just creating it,
So for one position, you are changing the title,
yes,
and that's all.
yes,
The other position, you're changing the title and hiring a new person.
correct. Not a new,
And
we're eliminating an existing position and creating.
changing the title,
Correct.
adding the requirement of engineering degree, and hiring a person to fill it.
Yes.
It could have been two. We could, if you would like to divide it into two motions, we've already gone through that on one of them. If you would like to divide it into two motions, that's fine.
No,
This
Mr.
has
Mayor,
nothing to do with bonding, so you don't have to do it.
just a very quick question. If we hire somebody, that's not an additional headcount?
No, because this person retired,
Fair enough.
so the position already exists, yep,
Thank you. Now I got it.
yep.
The mayor had it. I understood when the mayor had it. I'm good.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right. We do have, wait, I think in case, Mr. Dukan, don't we have item D?
Yes.
Yes, you have one more.
Still have one more, just in case, I don't know. Is there a motion on D?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve the elimination of the survey technician, create the new position of city surveyor in the engineering department, and to approve the incumbent, Mark Jennings, to the position of city surveyor at annual salary of $62,584. Funding for this position will through Department 160 Admin Engineering Fund, General Account Classification 51, Salaries and Wages.
Second the motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Now we have under administration, the informational item of the director's report.
Okay. This is just some crosswalk striping on Burke Street. We have been working on the Henry Burke pedestrian bridge. We've done some concrete repair work on it. The skateboard park is actually substantially complete now. We're actually doing, I think the Assistant Director, Andy, is doing a walkthrough tomorrow. And I think Superintendent Ibarra as well, so Superintendent Caggiano. So we're all really very excited about this. We do have, and I'll talk about it a little bit later, but on September 11th, we are planning grand opening and Public Works Day all at the same time, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. This is the final paving of Tinker Road. I'd love to say it went perfectly smooth. It did not, but all in all, I think it went pretty well, and the residents are happy that it's over. It was a very difficult road to pave. We've been doing a lot of paving at the schools in preparation for school to start on Monday. This is Pennachuck Middle School. We did the base paving of McKenna Drive. Unfortunately, did that a while ago. That is scheduled to be completed, but at the end of next week. Some of the paving that we did in the schools pulled us out of some of the residential streets, but some residents had expressed a little bit of frustration, but we will be back the end of next week to finish that up. This is base paving of Ledge Street Elementary, the parking lot. This is the Bicentennial School Reclaim Pathway. We've been busy painting all our red crosswalks in all the school zones. This is, there's a couple of slides here of the Veterans Drive bus stop that Public Works helped transit with. You can see it kind of a before and after. The Whipple Street parking expansion project is complete. It is final paved. We had a sinkhole on Whitney Street. We did a sidewalk replacement at 25 Raymond Street. Starkin Street Reservoir sidewalk replacement. We had a sinkhole on Bauer Street. As you can see, we've been very busy. This is just part of the same sinkhole repair on Bauer Street. We repaired some of the Sawmill Road near the wastewater facility. It's in bad shape. This is just some finished work that the street department is actually doing at the skate park. If you haven't seen it lately, you should go down again. It's pretty amazing. I've been installing some sidewalk also. And we're working on the parking lot. That obviously will serve Mine Falls and the skate park. And as the mayor mentioned, the Silver Knights beat the Worcester Bravehearts. So this is, I believe, the 4th championship in 7 years. So it's pretty awesome. We had India Independence Day celebration at Greeley Park. About 700 people attended. We spoke a little bit about the renovation work at Charlotte Ave. We're adding the 2 new fields. We're also adding a field on Jewel Lane. So that work is coming along nicely. And the Wheels and Wings event that was canceled has been rescheduled to September 16th. The Brew Fest was once again a huge success on August 19th. We had about over 3,000 people attend. This is a volleyball camp that was very popular at Nashua North this year. We have Mine Falls Trail Day coming up on August 26th, starting at the Lincoln Park entrance at 9 a.m. So if anybody wants to attend, we welcome the help. So we are scheduling our Public Works Day that we do every year. It'll be at Stella Stadium this year. Monday, September 11th from 3 to 6. We're going to kick it off with the opening of the skate park. And we'll have Public Works equipment there, and we'll have, as usual, tables and demonstrations. So hopefully you can all attend.
Not sure if I'm going to go down that. Circumstances have changed.
The landfill will be closed on Monday, September 4th, in observance of Labor Day, so trash collection will be delayed by 1 day. And on a very sad note, we lost one of our Public Works employees. Joe Therian, who had been with us since beginning of July, passed away unexpectedly, so at home. So we were really saddened by that, and Noel and I and a group of wastewater people went to the funeral, and it was a really beautiful funeral. But he was I just want to say this because sometimes people touch your heart. When I interviewed him, he was from Wheelabrator, we've had quite a few people from Wheelabrator, and I always try to get to know them a little bit, to see what kind of makes them tick. And I said, well, what do you do for fun, when you're not working? And he shared with me that he had lost his daughter a couple of years ago, and that he and his wife were raising 3 grandchildren. And his eyes just lit up, and he was telling me about all the activities that they were involved in. So he was a very special man, and a big loss certainly to his family and to the city. So. That's all. Sorry to stop on a sad note, but
the department is doing
I
a
thought
lot
you
of
should all know.
work all season long, but the one that particularly I wanted to mention was at the beginning, the paving of Tinker Road. Road was in terrible shape. We're getting all kinds of complaints about that. The department went in using, I think, what the money we anticipate bonding, right? Bonded
Yes.
funds.
Yes.
Part of the paving plan of action went in and spent the money to pave this road. We have received comments from residents who are very happy with that. Alderman Dowd, who represents Ward 2, where the paving took place, was very happy. So I think, in addition to everything else you're doing, I just wanted to mention that particular project, I think, was a big step forward as far as the condition of Nashua streets.
I think the assistant director has a little more gray hair after that project, but we made it through. One other thing I should also mention that was not in the director's report is that our next household hazardous waste collection is on August 25th from 8 to noon at the Pelham, New Hampshire Village Green, near the Pelham Police Station. So if anybody's interested in going, it's 8 to noon. So.
Commissioner Bergeron knows how to find Pelham.
I do. I marched in the parade. I know the Village Green.
Any comments from commissioners? Commissioner Bergeron.
I just want to say, we had a very spirited discussion at the beginning of the meeting, and I know, from the public, and I've talked to different people in the city, some of the aldermen, commissioners, the mayor, we talk about different things in Burke Street and some of the projects, and, yes, people just look at $48 million or whatever the number is, and rightly so that people have questions when it comes to their taxes and things, but as far as thinking that Public Works isn't doing their job, or, we're not doing our due diligence, that's not the case. And as I say to citizens all the time, and I have a lot of them constantly emailing, and I've got a question, and, I spend a lot of time going out and looking at things, and that I say to citizens many times, certainly let us know. I'll pass it along. I can't always get you the answer you want to hear, because sometimes it's, it's just something that we can't do something about it, or we can't do it at this time, or there's other, financial reasons why the city can't do it. But you generally will always get an answer, so I just encourage the public to, continue to contact. But, I take a little exception when somebody says, that the department's not doing its due diligence on some of these projects. I appreciate the work that we do, and I'm the first one to point out when I think something should be done, as you know. But at the end of the day, I think we're very responsive to any citizens' requests, and I just, again, thank you. It's going to be, when you have a project this size, sometimes it gets a little heated, but at the end of the day, I think, we're a good board. We listen to each other, and I believe that we do our due diligence. So I just want to kind of toot our horn maybe a little bit, and just thank everybody for the work. And when we see our park system, if you go to other communities and you look around, it's not like Nashua, whether it's the streets, whether it's our park system, and the programs in our infrastructure. So anyways, that's the end. My term is ending at the end of this, as people know, and it's only because of a time factor. I've loved serving on this board for the almost 4 years that I have, so and very proud of the work that we've done. It's just, for me, time, and I wish I could do it, but again, just, thank everybody for their work, and as we go forward, as long as we just keep, doing what we're doing, the city's, a lot of good things are happening in the city, so thank you.
Any other comments from commissioners? Commissioner Moriarty?
Yes, Director Fund, I'd just like to say that I've been very impressed with the caliber of applicants that we've been getting, both internally and externally. I'm very pleased. It's a win-win for the city. It's for them. I mean, I think the division is a great place to work. I think we offer good-paying jobs with great benefits, and most of these people really love the city and working for the city. So I've just been very happy with our recent hires and, the staff, yeah. So thank you.
Yeah, we're working really hard to hire quality people, and I think in the last 4 years, we've made some significant progress in terms of, quality and skill set, so.
Right.
Yeah, I agreed.
Any other commissioners' comments? Commissioner Ackerman?
Thank you. Had an opportunity on Saturday to go to the event at Holman Stadium, and kudos to the superintendent and his entire staff. I believe one of his key staff members, and I probably will botch her last name, Kelly Holberholtz, did a remarkable job coordinating that under your supervision, and it was amazing to see two major events, I think, in City of Nashua on the same day. And the other one escapes me, but it was the art show. Oh, yes, and I went to that on Sunday. Thank you. Good job.
Anyone else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Meeting is adjourned at 8:19.